Good morning, everyone. I wanted to address the COVID-19 coronavirus issue from a different angle than I've been talking about the last few times we've been together. I, as you know, had a dream about 9 months ago, and I shared this in an earlier broadcast, but in this dream, I saw these ominous clouds coming, and I saw this cityscape, and I heard the Lord say to me, ominous things are coming, ominous times are coming, and written across the buildings at the bottom in white was 2 Chronicles 7:14. And I wanted to read that here this morning, and for the next 2 or 3 times I want to talk about 2 Chronicles 7:14 because, well, a couple reasons. One, God gave me that dream, and so I feel like it was a mark on my leadership to deal with 2 Chronicles and how it relates to our times. But then secondly, I'm not hearing a lot of talk in relation to the discipline of the Lord. I've been listening to a lot of pastors and a lot of messages, and they've been great. They've been all about hope and God's love and God's compassion, and love that, man. You can't say enough about those kind of messages and how important they are. But 2 Chronicles 7 is a very interesting passage in Scripture because it actually deals with the other side of calamity, the other side of how God works, because God isn't always working in the good and the awesome and the beautiful and the successful. God is often doing His greater work in difficulties, struggles, and in His the other side of God that relates to His holiness. And so in 2 Chronicles 7, Solomon is dedicating the temple, and he just begins this chapter with so much joy, praise, worship. Everybody comes down on their face and blesses the Lord, and tens of thousands of sheep are sacrificed, and it's a powerful scene. And I'm not going to really cover that part. But then, after all that's occurred, we come to verse 12, and Solomon has a dream. So I had a dream about 9 months ago. Well, Solomon has a dream, and the Lord comes to him and warns him about the days ahead. And let me read verse 12. Then the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. So God tells Solomon that he's excited about the temple and all that has gone on the day before, and the praise and the worship and the beauty of the temple and the importance of the temple and the value of the temple. But then God gives a warning to Solomon, and I think this is the warning to us. And I think it's pretty important right now as we're dealing with COVID-19. Verse 13, when I shut up heaven and there is no rain, or command the locust to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people. You know, it's interesting because right here he's talking about judgment upon the land for those that forget about Him, who are not following Him. And he's going to give us a prescription in just a moment. But he talks about kind of negative signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. And most of it actually is economics. He talks about not having rain. This is an agrarian culture. He talks about locusts devouring the land. And so there's going to be economic difficulties. And then he mentions pestilence, which is disease and viruses and such things as that. Now, are we saying, or am I saying, that God brought this on America and brought this upon the world? I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that God often allows demonic activity. He allows difficulties to come to a nation if that nation is not following Him fully. And we see examples of this even in American history. When we look at the Civil War, I believe Civil War was a judgment for the sin of slavery. If we look at the stock market crash in the 1930s, I believe that was a judgment upon our economic system because of the sin and debauchery of the Roaring Twenties. I believe World War II was a judgment because of our docility and passivity in international affairs and not stopping Hitler early enough. And so here we are today, and if there's ever been a time in our nation's history where we have turned our backs on God, this is it. Many theologians, many commentaries, even recently hearing it on Fox News, that there has never been a nation, a Christian nation, that has so quickly turned from its religion, so quickly turned in the last 20 years from a Judeo-Christian worldview, a Judeo-Christian root structure that had built the foundations of our nation. It's just been like a landslide of secularism and sin in our nation, in our school systems, in the way in which we've cast out the Bible, and then of course the greatest of all being abortion, and what we've done in the slaughter of 60 million babies. It's horrendous. And so in verse 14 though, God in His mercy and in His love gives us a prescription. And I want to talk about that tomorrow morning. I want to talk about this prescription that God has for us from 1 Chronicles 7:14.